Good morning, everyone. How was the opening? Good. Thank you all for being here in this overflowing room. My name is Alexander Dale. I am the Senior Officer for our Sustainability Community. So I lead all of our sustainability work in terms of framing the challenge, drawing in all sorts of different people to apply to them, selecting our excellent set of finalists, and then I will be working with the solvers that we select today to build the partnerships that will make their ideas flourish even more so than they already are. I am really delighted to be here. This is one of the most exciting days of the year for us because we get to see all this stuff come true. We get to see people in the same room talking to each other. We get to see really amazing ideas pitched in front of an excellent panel of judges. And we get to take the next step in the solve journey. But first, you may be wondering why we picked this challenge of sustainable urban communities. So I want to start with kind of one key statistics. I try not to put too many of them in these sorts of speeches. That 50% of the world now lives in cities. That's a milestone we hit just a few years ago. And it's something that's only expected to increase up to 60 or even 70% in the coming decades. That means that cities are this defining form for humanity in the 21st century. We are collected in one space. That's where the economic opportunities are. The infrastructure matters. The people matter. All the different cultures that are clashing in those cities matter. And increasingly, the poor, who we often think of maybe in more rural areas, are moving to cities because that's where the opportunities are. And so all of the favelas, the shanty towns, the slums, the zopad patties, whatever term we use in different cultures, are also growing in all sorts of different countries, including the US. And so urban communities are this key piece. And as part of bringing lots of people together, that means they also need food and water. And while we may not think of those as immediate pieces that are a problem in cities, they are gigantic problems that can be very tricky to solve for a bunch of different reasons. So one is, in very developed countries like the US, there's a lot of old infrastructure. So I was in Pittsburgh for 10 years. The infrastructure there is 100 years old. It is often literally not there anymore in terms of pipes in the ground. They have wasted away. And then there's other places like Flint, and again in Pittsburgh, where there's lead in the water, where these systems have not necessarily been maintained. They are old, they are leaky, and what's coming out is not necessarily good. At the same time, those rich countries often have relatively high carbon diets from a lot of the meat that we eat or the long supply chains that bring that food to them. And on the flip side, right, the rest of the world is actively moving into these mega cities and actively building out all of their hopes and opportunities. The access to healthy food may be questionable depending on market prices and access to market for farmers. And for water, you may have a tap in your home. That tap may have water coming out of it regularly. That water might be safe to drink. Each of those is a big if. And so looking at how we produce clean water in cities of all sorts and how we provide healthy food in a low carbon manner in all these cities are really tricky questions. And so we've asked our finalists to look at 3 big areas. One of those is local production of food or local treatment of water at the point of use, so decentralization. One of them is how can we maintain, expand, and really make possible the kind of centralized water infrastructure that we have today. And finally, how can we work on those long food supply chains? How can we look at diet? How can we look at how food is getting to cities and where it's coming from? And that's particularly relevant for that protein question. And so we have 15 finalists here today that have been selected out of a pool of 153 from 15 different countries. It's an amazing set of people. We have almost an equal split, basically, between food and water. So you're going to hear an excellent set of different ideas. And to judge them, that's me, this is the challenge, we have an all-star panel of judges who are sitting up here, and they are well briefed with their iPads and their booklets and their notes, and they're ready to go. Please can we have a round of applause for these judges. And I would like to thank all of them for taking the time to be here with us today. I know it's been a challenge for people. I know we have a lot on our plates these days, and people, particularly with the General Assembly Week and all the different Climate Week events that are happening. It's really an honor to have all of you here with us. With that, I am going to do some really quick housekeeping rules, and then we're going to get into the first panelist. So each finalist will get 3 minutes to pitch. They have a clock in the back of the room. I will be watching that clock. I will keep them on time. They know that. So I will be harsh on them. After that 3 minutes, the judges will have 3 minutes to ask questions. And judges, we will ask you to keep your questions short. Finalists, we will ask you to keep your answers brief so we can get through lots of different questions. I will also be strict with the judges on the timekeeping for their 3 minutes. And we will move right through the 15 different finalists. At the end of that, there will be a chance for audience Q&A. So we'll have all of them up here. And you can ask any of them any questions that you have. So please write those questions down. Keep them in mind. You will also have a chance to vote for your favorite finalist. We'll show you how to do that right at the end. It'll be using your smartphones. It'll be very quick. And finally, please feel free to take pictures. There is a live stream of this, and we'll have some photographers around. But feel free to take pictures. Please hashtag them with Solve Finals. We would love to see your opinions on the finalists. And we hope that all of you in the room, you are members of the Solve community, right? And we want you to find these finalists, and hopefully you will be partnering with the selected solvers. With that, I am pleased to introduce our first pitch from CityTabs.
Good morning, I'm Greg. I'm the CEO and founder of CityTabs. Our vision is to bring running water to every urban home in the developing world. Today, there's 1 billion people who don't have running water at home. As a result, they pay a triple tax on poverty: a tax in time, they spend 2 hours a day getting water; a tax in health, the water that they drink from jerry cans makes them sick; and a tax in money, they pay 20 times the utilities' regulated rates. Meanwhile, water utilities have not found a way to provide services to everyone on a financially sustainable basis. And that's because they lose a ton of water, and it takes them 2 to 12 months to get paid. So they miss out on about $20 billion a year in potential revenue that they could use to improve service, but instead that leaves their financials in tatters. So they can't borrow money, and they can't get impact investors to help them out of this trap. We at CityTabs believe that we need to leverage the financial power of the people in the cities and the utilities. That is why we let them pay as they go for water and for water connections using their mobile phones. They can pay at any time, with any phone, and for any amount that's convenient to them. The utilities, meanwhile, know that they're going to get paid. There's no more bills to collect. They can clean up their financials and make the necessary investments. We've created CitySuite. It is the world's only prepaid and smart meter. It's the only one that uses mobile money. It generates a treasure trove of data that can be used for operational improvements and leak management. That means more water for more people. We've already made great progress in Niger with our partner Veolia. We're having an impact on people's lives, reducing their water budgets by 94%, improving their health. 61% are reporting health improvements. And so we're continuing. We're going to deploy 1,325 CitySuites over the next 6 months and impact the lives of 20,000 people. To scale beyond Niger and offer this opportunity to the utilities that need to serve 1 billion people worldwide, we need a radical new business model. And that model is going to be meter as a service. We give the meter away to people, to the utilities. They install it for people. The utilities get paid, and that's when we take our service fee. It's a game-changing model. It's also expensive. That's why I'm here to ask for your support. We're going to need to raise $8 million over the next 4 years with a $1.5 million round right now so that we can deploy 150,000 CitySuites and turn on the taps for 1 million people worldwide. At that point, our recurring revenue will fund our growth and our impact. We have a great team. We have a patented technology. We have a revolutionary business model and a clear path to scale. It's time. It's time to move into the 21st century and bring running water to every urban home in the developing world. Thank you. Yes, sir. So that is a problem when utilities are poor. When they move to a prepaid system, they become cash cows. And with that money, they can make the investments either out of their own funds, or they can borrow or get impact investors interested to help them finance that. That is not a problem that we address. We address one tap, one home, or a courtyard with several families. Those people then are responsible for sorting it amongst themselves, and they do a bang-up job of it. Yes? Okay. I guess I was really clear. So I can say that, for example, one of the things our solution allows us to do, yes, sir. 8 years. 8 years at this point, and that's before we go through a really rigorous, I mean, we've gone through a rigorous engineering process, but not like, you know, the crazy, crazy stuff that if we're bigger and have more money, we can do. And so 15 years is a reasonable time frame to shoot for. So at, of course, half the price. Absolutely. And in fact, regular phone's better almost. Yeah.
Is there a risk it can get tempered, or that it breaks and the cost of maintaining or repairing?
So the risk of tampering with a meter is the same for any kind of meter. The interest here is that you will know immediately that it's been tampered with. And of course, we have detection that detects the fact that it's been tampered with, and we can turn it off at a distance. So. At this point, it's a bit costly. Our meters, our COGS are high, so our ability to produce a bunch of them will let us reduce our COGS and really put our meter as a service model in place. Once you start giving them away, there's no stopping us, really. The friction is zero. Not really. Honestly, I mean, every time I talk to a utility manager, they're like, when can I have some? And I say, when can you buy some? Oh, I don't have a budget. Let me give them to you, right? And that solves the problem.
Is there a minimum increment in which the water has to be purchased?
We apply the utilities tariff strictly. Usually they're step tariffs, but in theory there's no minimum amount that you can contribute. You can contribute 1 CFA franc, which is 1/655th of a euro. You know.
What's the unit cost?
The unit cost at this point is not something I'm willing to discuss in front of all these people, but I'm happy to answer your question. Thank you very much. And feel free to ask me any questions afterwards. Where is she?
Next up will be Copia.
There you go.
Trying to get through the doorway.
Good morning. Squeak, squeak. My name is Komal Ahmed. I am the founder and CEO of Copia. And I'm here to share how my team and I are solving the world's dumbest problem, hunger. How many of you have attended a conference, a wedding, had a lunch at Google, and wondered what happens to all of this leftover food? Does it magically disappear? Does the bride end up taking it home? Unfortunately, over 365 million pounds of that perfectly edible food is wasted, while 1 in 6 don't know where their next meal is coming from. The issue is not a lack of food, it's an inefficient distribution of that food. So hunger is not a scarcity problem, it's a logistics problem. And that's a logistics problem we went off to solve. What's been missing is an easy and a seamless way to safely connect those with excess food to those in need of it. And that's exactly what Copia has built. A platform and proprietary technology to solve both hunger and food waste at scale. Imagine you're Intel. Instead of throwing away your excess food after an event or from your corporate cafeteria, you request a pickup through Copia's platform. Our algorithm will match that exact amount and type of food to the nearest nonprofit or nonprofits that could accept it at that day, at that time. It'll dispatch a driver to give them the most efficient route to pick up and deliver that food. And then the nonprofit signs a tax-deductible receipt and sends back powerful photos and testimonials so that Intel gets to see the impact that they made by spending less than 2 minutes of their time going Copia. Copia is a for-profit company. Businesses like Intel pay us because we provide them robust data and analytics that help them reduce over-purchasing and overproduction costs in the future. We also help them reduce disposal costs. And we provide them enhanced tax deductions that help them save tens of thousands to tens of millions of dollars. And nonprofits love us because we provide them higher quality, nutritious food for free. We have recovered over $6 million worth of food, diverted over 650,000 pounds of food from landfill, and we have fed the equivalent of over the largest football stadium filled to its absolute brim 5 times over. And I'm proud to share that we're going to feed 1 million people this year with food that would have otherwise been wasted. Let me share a few quick success stories. So the Bay Area hosted the Super Bowl, and our partnership with the NFL ensured that we recovered over 14 tons of food And for my Americans in the audience, 14 tons of food is 4 16-foot refrigerated trucks filled not with pizza and popcorn, but filet mignon, lobster rolls, pulled pork sandwiches. Not really my jam, but high quality food for the people that we serve. And we would love for you to be part of this movement. What we're looking for is high-level introductions to food management companies like Sodexo and Aramark, along with corporate cafeterias, universities, cough, cough, MIT, hospitals, and also large-scale experts in large-scale logistics providers that can also help us scale across the country.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi. What's the turnaround time on the data and analytics, and then the tax paperwork for the donators?
Great question. It's actually automated, so it comes up every single time. So most of our customers are subscription-based, so we know when they're going to pick up food, and that all of that information is aggregated after every time that pickup happens. And the nonprofit then signs off every time that they get. So imagine you're like Goodwill. You have to fill out that entire tax-deductible receipt, like this is how many T-shirts. Our system automates that process, and so when every time the nonprofit receives the food, they sign off on that, and they say, this is what the food was valued at. We received it. We're only going to give it to feed people in need. And so all of this, it's an aggregated amount, so it happens as you go.
How do you deal with food safety and expiration dates?
Sure. Yeah, so a lot of the food that we're talking about is like high quality, highly perishable food. And there's 5 different ways that we protect businesses from liability. So first and foremost, there's a federal act that protects all donors, regardless of whether you're a corporation, organization, or individual. It's called the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act. And in the last 20 years, the number of lawsuits or legal claims that have been filed against any business or individual has been 0. But everyone and their mother has like a second cousin twice removed, uncle's golf buddy's hotel that shut down. And it never happened. And we also provide, all of our drivers are ServSafe certified professional food handlers. We have a $5 million insurance policy that picks up food from the time of drop-off to the time of pickup. And also, we're also working with policy to work better on like improving the best buy, sell by, use by dates, because there is a lot of confusion in that.
So can you say a little bit about how you match the supply with the need in terms of nutrition? And
so it's more in terms of what the need actually is. So our nonprofits create essentially dating profiles. They'll tell us who we are, what kind of clients do they serve. You're going to feed different food to senior citizens versus children. What kind of food can they accept? Prepared, ready to go because they don't have a kitchen. Uncooked meat, dairy because they have a kitchen, they want to make it themselves. And if you're in San Francisco, gluten-free food. Because, and I'm being serious there. And then what's their refrigeration capacity? What's their freezer capacity? When do they need the food? And all of this information is then stored into a virtual marketplace. And so when someone requests a pickup of their excess food, they're telling us already, what kind of food it is, what's the weight of that food. And then our algorithm will kick in and match that exact amount and type of food to the nonprofit that's open, that's closest, that can accept that type of food, and then match it the most effective route. And then also dispatch the driver to do that.
Going to sound like a naive question, but why hasn't it been done before?
I think there's a few reasons. It has been done. We didn't invent the concept of food recovery. We just put technology behind it to help scale it, because that's what's required. I think that before, what hasn't been existed has the proliferation of technology, among other things. We can talk more about it after.
Stage left.
Stage left. Thank you.
My name's Danny Wright, and today I'm going to be talking to you about a simple yet brand new technology I created to bring clean drinking water to developing countries. My system's called the Gravity Water System, and what it does is combine rainwater harvesting, elevated storage, and gravity-fed filtration, providing communities in developing countries with a source of safe drinking water that's on-site, self-sustaining, long-term, and 100% energy-free. Our systems work through harvesting rainwater and storing it at an elevated level, so the water never comes into contact with human waste or fecal bacteria, which is the primary cause of waterborne illness and death around the world. In addition, storing the water at an elevated level allows us to use gravity as the power source to filter the water, eliminating the need for electricity or pumps, which are the primary things to break in most water systems. in 2016, me and a team of 4 passionate individuals went out to Nepal, where we installed 5 of these systems that are currently providing 60 liters per hour of filtered drinking water, completely energy-free, for over 3,000 students in the Kathmandu region. The reason we were able to have such a big impact in such a short amount of time was due to the simplicity of our systems. Our systems are built with basic materials that can be locally sourced in most developing countries, and not only are the materials locally sourced, so are the skill sets that are needed to maintain, manage, and implement these systems. These systems can be built in a week, and they're extremely affordable. In fact, 95% of the cost of these systems are initial one-time costs, with the only recurring costs being filter replacement and minimal maintenance. Through Gravity Water's sustainable funding platforms, such as our Gravity Water Youth Initiative, which works with US public high schools to hold fundraiser events for clean water systems in developing countries, and our business partnerships, special events, and monthly memberships, we can sustainably fund the initial cost of these systems. The way MIT Solve can help us is through helping with the design and increasing the efficiency of these systems, through helping with our strategic planning to allow our organization to grow and thrive throughout the future, and through helping with providing new funding opportunities, but more importantly, helping us build and scale the funding platform we already have in place. This system is innovative in a sense that it's not being used anywhere in the world. It's feasible and scalable based on the fact that it's built with such basic and simple materials, and it's adoptable by community members because it's built with materials that are familiar to them. There's no high-tech technology. Everyone in these countries, most of them have rainwater tanks at their house. So one other thing is the potential impact is huge. Actually, the majority of developing countries are located in the tropics and subtropics, where rainfall is not only present, it's overwhelmingly abundant. And in addition, these systems are directly related to urban communities since they can attach to pre-existing infrastructure, creating a completely free catchment surface for these systems. I know with the help of the MIT Solve community, we can help scale our impact to provide clean water systems for hundreds of communities in multiple countries, not in decades, but in the years ahead. Thank you.
How does the system work in dense urban settlements where space for multiple tanks is problematic?
Well, most of the actual footprint's about, I'd say, 5 feet wide by potentially 20 feet. However, we have built them in Kathmandu in condensed regions, and we actually saved a lot of money because we didn't need to use tank stands. We were able to place the elevated tanks on pre-existing structures that were lower than the catchment surface. So you actually don't need a tank stand to put these. The tank stands are more for areas that are very flat or don't have already elevated surfaces.
Is there anything, proprietary on the collection surface? Like, I know we've looked into some collection, and it's a lot of it is getting that connection into the pipe and the cleanliness of that and the enough surface area. And is there anything special you guys have innovated on that front?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we actually have a flush system. So the initial rainwater that hits the roofs or the catchment surface actually goes to the ground where it's originally going. The communities actually turn a shutoff valve, which redirects the water into the tanks. So all the schools that are using our systems wait till the first rain has happened and wait for about 2 hours of heavy rain until it completely has washed off the roofs, and then turn it on. And that removes about 99% of any type of pollutants.
How dependent is this upon rainfalls and when changing weather events and stuff? I mean, is that over-dependency of tanks like this then?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So these systems are built in accordance with the average annual precipitation patterns of each country. In Nepal, the average time of 0 rainfall is about 70 days or 60 days before a rain event happens. These systems store water, 1 liter of drinking water per student, guaranteed for 90 days minimum. So that's why we have so many tanks, is usually for storage during periods of drought. In addition, with global climate change happening, that's actually predicted to increase precipitation in the tropics and subtropical regions of the world. So these systems have a high adaptive capacity to that.
Can you talk about financial sustainability?
Yeah, so right now we are 1 year old. It's been an interesting journey as a nonprofit to find sustainable funding. However, we had launched this amazing program that has been super well received by high schools, where they spend one day holding a fundraiser that pretty much funds an entire system for a developing country. They get published for this, like in the local newspapers, and we actually show a banner with their logo on it that they can put up in Nepal in their system. So that's been amazing. But we also have a recurring membership base, which is growing a lot every day. And we're hoping, and we just made 2 business partnerships that sound promising.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next up, I'd like to welcome Pharmacist. Upper group.
Hello everyone, I am Shubham, co-founder of Pharmacist. I am a third-year BTech student in India. So research shows that all farms are different, even if they are just 100 meters apart. In every crop cycle, the conditions are also different. But farmers use same practices for decades based on rule of thumb, which lead to lower food quantity and quality and improper use of resources, which is a serious challenge for sustainability. So pharmacists collect data from farms and provide them useful recommendations based on their unique condition. We will use a combination of hardware and software like IoT and sensors to collect data like soil nutrient and climatic conditions. We will use satellite imagery for crop quantity and quality. Farmers will also be able to identify pests and diseases using their smartphone camera. So then we will use machine learning and data analytics to provide them recommendations on what should he grow, wheat or mustard, which seed should he sow, how much fertilizer should he apply, when should he irrigate, today or 3 days later. In case of pests and diseases, he would know what works best. Basically, all the farming decisions will be data driven and optimum, and as more and more data is collected, reliability of our recommendation increases. So we believe each farm is unique and so is our solution. Currently, we are in research stage and we have been working on this for past 3 months. We are meeting different farmers and agri experts to develop suitable product. So at such an early stage, it is hard to have a foolproof plan for deployment, but we plan to at first work with big farms to have enough data to make our recommendations reliable. As our solution is creating value for farmers, we believe they will also readily adopt this. But for those who can't afford, we are exploring group renting or cooperative models. Our solution can be implemented in every kind of farm, be it rural traditional farms, urban rooftop farms, or vertical farms. For monetization, we are considering options like charging for recommendation on production and disease and pest prevention services. To achieve the highest scale, we plan to focus on the software part and open source the hardware part so that communities from all over the world can learn how to collect data, and we will do the rest. We are applying to solve for technical support in product development, for mentorship in team building and scaling, and to be a part of a larger community sharing same vision of sustainable development. Thank you.
So I guess I need some clarity on what you actually would be doing. I heard that you would be outsourcing the hardware.
Yes.
And you would be doing the software and the data analytics. Can you just describe maybe really specifically what it is that you would provide?
Okay. So at first we will develop the hardware. Then using this, we will sort out a technique for which how we can collect the soil nutrient data, the climatic condition data. We will directly embed we will output the climatic conditions data. Okay. And then we will have also a market demand. Then after developing these sensors, we will provide them recommendations. Now once we have achieved the scale so that our product becomes perfect, then we will open source the hardware part so that communities that we cannot reach can also access our solution. And then we will use data analytics and machine learning to provide them also the communities we cannot reach physically, they will also can use our solution. Yes.
How much, or is there some estimates on how much this can impact crop yields?
This will decrease the input use and also increase the crop yield. So it will increase the crop yield 20 to 25% and decrease the input use so by 10 to 15%.
How do you anticipate getting farmers, small or large scale, to trust that your data or your recommendations are valid?
Okay, so they can compare their result with the previous year results, because this will be quite obvious that the input use will be decreased, and they can easily estimate the decrement of input uses. For the productivity part, they can compare with the previous year results so that they can understand. Yes.
How do you take care of the small scale farmers? Like they're so diverse. They have like a different languages, and especially in society. How do you communicate to those indigenous small scale farmers?
Can you please repeat the question? I cannot understand it.
Oh, to communicate
Yes.
with the small scale farmers. How do you communicate to the? They don't use the one language. I mean, they are really diverse, different kind of local language.
Yes, so our software platform will work on different languages. This will support local languages as well. We will at the starting stage we will provide them hardware, and then we will provide them the recommendations. At the later stage, when they are doing the hardware part on their own, then our software will support multiple languages as well, so that they can get our recommendations.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Next up, we'd like to welcome Zero Water Waste Technology.
Hi, I'm Dr. Anil, medical doctor. Good morning to everyone. So our solution is zero water waste technology. Oops. No, this one is not. Okay. So water. Everywhere there is water, but the reality is by 2025, 2/3 of the world is going to face the shortage of water as a daily reality. And 1,000 children die every day because of contaminated water. So what we have, we are water messiahs, and we are safeguarding the world from water crisis by our patented nano-embryon technology, which is patented and certified by highest apex bodies in India. So imagine for the existing technologies to produce 1 liter of this water, they use 2 liters of water, essentially wasting another liter of water. And the excess salts in that wastewater actually contaminates the land and water further. Okay. And industries use billions and billions of liters of water every day, and the wastewater again contaminates the land and water. So nano-embryon treats any type of contamination, be it metal, chemical, microbes, or physical contamination. And how does this magic box works? So nano-embryon is an electromagnetic resonance ion trapping system that traps the waste at the bottom and collects it as a reusable, solid, non-hazardous waste. And every 100 liters of water you put into it, it will give you up to 99 liters of purified water with the WHO norms, drinking water norms. And what more? So we automated all these plants with real-time and remote monitoring for both input and output water parameters. Okay. So I'll go for the next slide. Sorry. Okay. So we already have 34 existing water community plants providing access to 500,000 people at the point of consumption, and we also have a 1 million liter per day capacity industry treatment plant that is already existing, giving us $5 million revenue at the moment with 20% of profit. And we are tomorrow's solution with today's cost. It costs nearly as the existing solutions, but gives you 100% more efficiency. That means you get 50% reduction in your cost. Okay. And in this process, we actually generated 34 micro entrepreneurs as well. Okay. And I'll go back to the previous one. Okay. So our solution is affordable, customizable, scalable, providing universal access to safe drinking water, and without overtaxing the water table, water resources. And with us, the world never gets dry. and no more deaths of these children. We provide safe drinking water that prevents waterborne infections and chronic diseases because of mineral deficiencies. So what we're hoping from, what we're hoping from Solve is to go global. We're already saving 0.5 billion liters of water for India. We're hoping to save more water for this world. And it's a $220 billion opportunity.
Thank you.
And you can make all that money by doing good things. Yes.
How does a low-income community access the startup technology to be able to then
benefit?
Yes.
Okay. All these 34 plants are in the low-income capacity, low-income people. Serving is, at the moment we are selling to the people at 1/6 of a cent per liter. Okay, in India. Exactly. We do everything from turnkey solution we give out. And we identify one person as a micro entrepreneur in that community and let them to run over it. Yes, they do repay the cost of the capital. And we partnered with governments and NGOs who they are happy to pay us the capital. So it is at no cost for the community.
I'd be curious about patents. It sounds like you have nano is one side of things, and electroresonance is another. How many patents are you holding or working on?
We're an innovative company with lots of patents, and this one is patented as a nano embryon technology in one go. Okay, so that's together. Okay. So we found a way to mix them together. Yeah. And it can treat any type of contamination, the same technology.
Sorry, I was curious about the sludge. If there are toxics, are you saying that something in the electromagnetic processing neutralizes bacteria or
yes, it neutralizes the bacteria, and it neutralizes the heavy metals and even a chemical produced. Suppose say one of the solver has come back to us providing some creative insights like, what happens with the excess estrogen content of people throwing the pills in the sewage water, contaminating with the water bodies, making the fish more feminizing, and we can treat that water as well. Thank you. And the solutions are existing, and we're doing it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next solution was not able to join us in person, so we will have a video pitch, and then we have dialed her in from Nigeria. So if you're going to go to the next slide and play the video.
get to know who the urban farmer is that's managing the container, and get to see real-time visual surveillance and reporting of planting, harvesting, and sales with a guaranteed return on investment. Our model includes everyone in this urban farming initiative, from youth to investors and our customers. We want to scale and promote inclusive growth, so we manage, handhold, and offtake from farmers. This means we grow our brand while growing the number of young urban farmers. Using our container farm technology and our management app, once a young, unemployed, unskilled urban youth like Mercy can become highly skilled, employed, productive, and happy urban farmer without the need for land, experience, or finding market. It's a solution Nigerian youth are looking for, and we hope to scale it to other African cities, including Dakar, Accra, Abidjan, Nairobi, and Addis Ababa. Help us strengthen African food systems through our urban farming with our modular stackable container farm, so we can bring fresh premium produce, fresh, direct to Africa.
Great. I believe that we have Angel on the line. Great. Okay. We'll give her a few seconds here. And she should get mic'd in so that the judges can talk directly. You will need to use the microphone because she will not hear you otherwise. She should be on. This is a case of we can't get the room audio to work. Okay, Rachel has her, but okay. Well, I think we'll have to come back to this. We will work to call her during deliberation, as that makes sense. And instead, we will move on to the next pitch, which is Gastromotiva.
Around, but since we're talking about food, I brought a few samples. There we go. I'll explain in a bit. You can try already if you liked. There you go. There's some for the public as well. Okay. Almost pretty. Works. But my time started before I started talking. Can we reset? Please. Okay, so good morning. My name is Nicola, and I'm the CEO of Gastromotiva. We work with the concept of social gastronomy, which means using the transformative power of food to respond to modern challenges such as malnutrition, unemployment, and hunger. And for the past 11 years, we've already brought real solutions to the market. So we've trained people through gastronomy and put them into the market. We work with food entrepreneur classes as well as nutrition classes for underprivileged communities. And being present in 4 countries by now, we already educated more than 100,000 people. So since last year, we became active in the space of food waste. Globally, we waste 1/3 of all of the food that we produced. Do you realize that we could actually feed the entire world with this food? And did you know that if food waste was a country, it would be the 3rd largest in terms of emissions? So what could a small Brazilian NGO actually do to help solve this problem? Well, with the opportunity of Olympics in Rio, we joined forces with Massimo Bottura, Food for Soul, and Ale Forbes, and built the Refeitório Gastromotiva, a food waste restaurant school. We work with the support of our global chefs network, as well as our Gastromotiva students. We transform food surplus into healthy meals for people at need. And this space actually has become a real social gastronomy hub, a source of inspiration, collaboration, and nourishment for the community. So every month, we recuperate approximately 1 truck of food, while our main supplier in Rio by themselves waste another 400. So we realized we have all tools at hand to do even more. So Gastromotiva will pilot and develop a sustainable and replicable social business model with 3 new areas of actuation. Coming to the product, we're going to start an innovative food surplus product line. All of our products are going to go through a carefully designed circular approach. So one of my favorites is our beer, which you have there. So we produce beer out of stale bread and then reuse the production surplus to bake bread again. Further, we offer experiences and educational events online and offline, just in line with the trend of experience economy. And last but not least, we will enable all of us to become active and will connect our initiatives online. Kicked off with an all-girls hackathon, we're going to offer tools and solutions and knowledge, actually, for our online and community platform. And eventually, we'll integrate tools as well that will connect food surplus to people in need. We'll recover 42 tons of food, reducing 130 tons of emissions, and educating 500,000 consumers only through the pilot project. We have a team that's prepared with more than 11 years of experience and collected best practices, and we have important players on board already, such as IDB and Cargill. So we're here to become now MIT final solvers, as we need your help with technology, with access to experts and other innovations, to take this solution from local to global and scaling it. So let's start cooking that solution, shall we? I saw the time and speed it up.
So I'm sure you saw the article in the New York Times about junk food in Brazil.
Yes.
So how do you compete with that? It's a vast global, international, corporate, global machine to deliver extraordinarily inexpensive food delivered to your home. And there's as much of a social network and as much motivation behind getting that food into people's homes as you have for yours. So how do you compete?
So I think it's about educating, so which is why we're not working just with the products or just with educational events, but it's a joint group of action. So it's educating people using the power of the chef's voice. So we have a strong chef's network. So if Massimo does a recipe, people follow it, because now it's fancy, the voice of a chef. And it's actually one of the most trusted voices in the US currently, for obvious reasons. So it's about educating, then making it trendy and sexy. Yeah, that'd be the main.
Describe more about the 42 tons of food that you're going to recover. Whom are you working with? What does that process look like?
Mm-hmm. So currently we're working with two main suppliers in Rio, which is Benassi, which are fruits and vegetables that, yes, otherwise would go to waste. Then we work with Carrefour, with BRF in terms of proteins as well. And there's a lot of more potential. I mean, obviously legislation, like my colleague before mentioned as well, it's an issue, but we're working on that on the education side again, lobbying the policymakers to improve. And then examples like these suppliers are going to get more on board. So every month, we have more people that want to be involved. And our capacity is obviously to a certain point, but then with partners such as Carrefour, I think the distribution as well will be able to increase that.
You envisage to be sustainable financially, or you will always need grants and philanthropic support?
So that's the whole idea. So Gastromotiva on the education front and social gastronomy has been operating as an NGO for now, and now we're moving with this supported into a social business model, so that the calculation within 3 years would become self-sustainable with these new initiatives. So the online learning, the membership model, as well as the product revenue and paid experiences. We have 40 seconds. Mm-hmm. So I think for us the main challenge is technology. So we've been doing, work hands-on with chefs for creativity for over 11 years, and we have these experiences. But now I think for us scalability will come through technology. So again, with the hackathon, we're going to kick it off, bring some concrete solutions, and then integrate solutions like you heard before, the distribution, getting food surplus to the right people. So all these things we want to bring into the platform, because we have access to very powerful players.
Thank you very much.
Huh? Oh, the clicker. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Destroying.
Hi, my name is Patrick Soon, project leader of Team Water Rig. Our solution is really simple. The Water Rig Hub is a decentralized energy and water collection point at the core of our solution. This hub is used to collect energy from the environment, such as solar, wind, and ground cooling. The hub can then produce at least 2,000 liters of drinking water per day. Surrounding the hub, container-sized modules are being conceptualized. These modules can be plugged into the hub to gain access to energy and water. They all serve its own specific purpose, such as water, vertical farming, greenhouse, rainwater processing, water purification, and of course, algae farming as well. When water-rich hubs and modules are arranged in cluster, it can form a local sustainable community for providing truly decentralized water and food supply. Instead of building a high-budget one-off infrastructure, our modular design offers flexibility for easy scaling. Community can plug in at new modules piece by piece at their own pace. The second function of the hubs is to collect local data onto multiple blockchain. It collects two types of data. First, local climate and water quality data. Second is water, food production, and user transaction data. One blockchain will serve as climate and water monitoring database, and a second blockchain will serve as a base allowing members to transact surplus and micro-ownership. Information on a blockchain system can be searched publicly without going through any monopolized authority to avoid potential data manipulation. We envision that this emerging open ecosystem will increase social efficiency and at the same time creating jobs and help to reduce food and drinking water costs eventually. The hub hardware is now in prototyping stage. Prototyping stage following a very tight X-Prize timeline. We are building a pilot site with a major vertical farm operator in Hong Kong. We plan on funding more pilot sites through issuing crypto tokens to micro-investors within our community. The same concept should also be used for funding local deployment, involve end users' rights to co-own. Our model has a great potential to become a fundraising framework for future projects to follow. We are looking for urban planners, hybrid water system experts, and local community builders to help move our solution forward. We are seeking cooperation through open innovation and collaboration with other teams through MIT Solve. Thank you.
You're in prototype mode, if I understand. So how much resources in terms of people, time do you need to go forward, and what's the likelihood of success?
Right now, we are very focused on the hardware prototyping stage, and we are trying to come out with a prototype before January 2018 to meet the X-Prize timeline. And we are doing that in we are partnering with a vertical farm operator in Hong Kong, and they provide land and some technical people for us to use. Right now we have 2 part-time engineers, 1 material scientist, and 1 financial guy to do the crypto token structuring. And we are going to need a blockchain team soon.
So,
yes, sir.
In terms of scalability, it's very often the case that the access to renewable energy in a particular location is not necessarily coincident with the need for water or food in that same location, right?
Right.
So what are your thoughts on the scalability of this, especially in dense urban conditions?
Right. There's one use case that the hardware can replace the traditional water tank on top, partially replace a water tank on top of a building, and separating drinking water from normal use water. And that will help to scale in some denser population area. For now, yeah.
The projects are like funded by the angel investor mainly.
Right, we are in pre-seed stage.
Okay. Why don't you try the government procurement to the feasible study, a grant, stuff like even the other countries need it, like.
Right. We are still in early stage. We start out, the real team start out in April actually. So we are still working through government funding and NGO funding or other possibilities. And MIT Soft is a good channel and a platform for us to seek for partnerships and resources. We're still young.
Questions? Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And actually, we're going to take a quick back step and go back to Angel. And she should be on the line now if we can connect her quickly. Good. Angel, are you there?
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello. We're here with 7 judges and 100 or plus people in the room. You are live, so the judges can ask you questions about the video. We have seen your video. Judges, if you have questions for the Fresh Direct team, let me get you a mic. So,
Hi, I had a question about how the land is secured that hosts the containers.
Yes, we take empty land. We have like a lot of empty plots in Abuja and Lagos, and the regulations are that the owners of the land have to use the land, or they actually lose the land because it's a long lease that we have from government. We don't do ownership of land. So what we do is we go to land people who have the land, and we pretty much ask for a short lease, like 5 years, 4 years for that specific empty plot, and we're able to secure it for them. Like when we got onto our land that we are using in Abuja, there was no fence, there were squatters, and people were trying to use the space as a trash heap. So the owner of the space was happy because we add value to a land which he's not ready to build on now, but in years down the line he will be interested once the property value increases.
Hi, Angel. In the presentation, you showed an example of an unskilled young person who became eventually a skilled farmer. Does Fresh Direct Nigeria provide that training to that farmer, or do other organizations do that training?
We do that training. That was actually Mercy. She was one of the first that came into our program, and she came into Abuja. She didn't have any other skills except for to do domestic labor, work, house help, nanny, and things like that. And so once we brought her on board, it was just through experiential learning where she's trained on that. We were able to help her get a bank account. On top of that, we started training her on not just leadership techniques, but also to be able to learn how to manage her money as well. So now she manages the other girls that are on our facility.
As a follow-up question to that, it sounds like your biggest challenges are access to inputs and training. Can you comment on scalability to expand?
So our biggest challenges really are not necessarily the scalability, but for us, electricity was one big issue, and going completely off-grid was a solution for us. In terms of inputs, the only foreign inputs that we use are the rock wool that we use and the seeds, actually. So a lot of work has been just put into getting our input for the rock wool months in advance. So we get that in advance and then we bring it in. We worked with the Nigerian incentive-based risk lending system. They're insurance and lending guarantor. And what they do is they actually provide loans to urban farmers or farmers in general that need money for their inputs. So they're trying to come on board to work with us. To be able to fund young urban farmers so they don't just work for us, but they also are owners of containers themselves.
Do you have plans to partner up with some agricultural university?
We actually are working on that right now. We have a partnership with Landmark University in Nigeria, and so we're actually also looking to partner with foreign universities. I went to Michigan State University, so I would love to partner with MSU, but then any other universities like Arizona State that have controlled environment agriculture programs that would be interested in partnership in Nigeria and other developing countries, then we'd be interested in that.
so much. I'm so glad we did manage to connect, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Our next pitch, we come back to the physical space here with meal flour. Big button.
I'm Gabby Weimer, one of the co-founders of Meal Flour. We empower communities to address malnutrition by teaching them how to build and maintain environmentally sustainable mealworm farms and how to turn mealworms into a protein-rich powder that can improve diets and serve as an additional source of income. We teach people how to build the farms from locally available materials like water jugs. The farm is a 4-tiered structure that separates the different life stages: beetles, eggs, mealworms, and pupa, so that a new batch of mealworms can be harvested each week. Mealworms eat organic wastes like banana peels and leaves, and a small serving of oats, corn flour, or bran. And when you roast the mealworms, you can easily grind them into a powder that's easy to incorporate into the foods you already make. So that means people can improve their nutrition without having to change their dietary habits. Another added bonus to mealworm farms is that mealworm waste is a great fertilizer because it contains a lot of nitrogen. So that means having a mealworm farm can also help people maintain a garden to grow fruits and vegetables. So for some of you, you may be saying, do people actually eat insects? Yes, 80% of the world already eats insects, but the main issue is they don't have the technology to grow it at home. So they rely on harvesting them during various seasons. But mealworms require little food, space, or water, so they're ideal for growing at home so that people have access to protein year-round. Mealworm farming is also adaptable to various climates, so it's really the ideal insect for crowded urban areas. And mealworm powder is 55% protein and contains all essential amino and fatty acids, making it especially great for communities suffering from protein deficiency. And mealworms are also much better for the environment than livestock. They require 2,000 times less water and release 12 times fewer greenhouse gases than beef. So Meal Flour currently works in Guatemala, where we partner with local organizations to reach communities with our Train the Trainer program. And because we work with established programs, we've been able to generate a lot of interest. And women like Irma are really excited about being able to produce a low-cost source of protein that is going to improve her diet, but also the diet of her son, Denny. So mealworm farms can be built from a variety of materials, and they're adaptable to different climates. That means that our program is readily scalable and adaptable to different settings. By working with organizations that already have programs established in disadvantaged communities, we'll be able to bring meal flour to people around the world who are looking for a low-cost, environmentally sustainable source of protein that they can easily incorporate into the foods they're already making. And that's why we need Solve's help. So our team already has the background in international development and global health to roll out our program in Guatemala. But we're looking to connect with experts who can help us develop an impact evaluation and a scale-up plan so that we can make sure meal flour has maximum impact. Thank you.
How complex, or I didn't understand your farm. Is it a complex thing, a structure costly, or is it a very simple at-home thing?
It's very simple. So that's why we use local materials. So you just need the top container to have small holes so that the eggs can pass through. And then everything else by that is done by hand. There is potential to automate it, but a lot of the communities we work in don't have electricity. There isn't really the knowledge to build that kind of system, so we've adapted it to the local context. So there's a range, basically, of how complex it can be.
Is there an existing demand for mealworm flour?
There's an existing demand for protein, and there's a culture of edible insects in Guatemala and countries around the world. So we're meeting that demand and making a source of protein that's easy to incorporate into the foods they're already making. And we've recently connected with the only other edible insect farmer in Guatemala.
I was just curious, so would an example be like you'd integrate it with tortilla flour?
Yeah, exactly. Or oatmeal.
And flavor-wise, does it change things or sweeten?
It kind of has a nutty flavor, and then when you roast them, some people say it tastes like chocolate, so I think it makes everything taste better. So.
Well, that was leading my second question, which is, from a marketing perspective, a demand contract from like an innovative power bar company or something like that. Have you guys, I know you're working in the developing context, but have you thought about some kind of private partnership like that?
We have thought about that. There is a growing edible insect movement in North America also, so we've been talking to an edible insect farm in Texas that's interested in supporting our work. So part of the proceeds from their sales would go to support our work in Guatemala and hopefully other countries as well.
So imagining scaling up massively, what would be the main obstacle?
Right now, funding. Our main goal is to just kind of develop a package of training materials that we can share with other organizations. And we've already been in touch with large NGOs, but they just want an impact evaluation and proof that our program does reduce chronic malnutrition and stunting before they implement it themselves. So we just really need to reach enough participants in Guatemala to get that data that they're looking for.
And in your model, the farm is purchased by or it's distributed by NGOs?
It depends. So if there is an ability to pay, then they contribute towards the cost. And then if there isn't, then Meal Flour supplies that, or the NGO covers the cost of the farm. So that's something that's kind of on a case-by-case basis with the NGOs we work with. Cool. Thank you.
And next up is Robot Daisy, the water saver.
I'm a PhD student at MIT and also the founder of PipeGuard Robotics. Today, I'm going to tell you a story about water leaks. So every day, on average, 20% of all our produced clean water are lost in the world. And most of those leaks are either not found or found too late. When they were found, a lot of those leaks have already created a sinkhole in the ground, and which creates structural damage to the infrastructure. Those sinkholes come at, will cost, on average, cause property damage about $200,000 in the US. So we want to change that. At PipeGuard, we want to find leaks early and accurate. What we come up with is a solution called Robot Daisy. And here is one of the Robot Daisy in my hand. We call it Robot Daisy because it looks like a female wearing a blue skirt. And this blue skirt is actually where the magic is. So whenever this robot goes past a leak location, the water leaving from that leak will create a suction force and pull on her skirt. And that is how we detect leaks. So this robot is actually really easy to use. A technician just need to go to the field, put it in from one fire hydrant or any kind of T-junction, go and wait at the next fire hydrant, take it out. The robot will record its journey through the pipeline and also where it sees leaks, and as well as information about leaks. And once you take the robot out, our cloud service will be able to create a map of leaks, telling you exactly where leaks are and how big those leaks are. So how is PipeGuard different from the other solutions? That we use a lot of numbers, but let me just give you a physical sense of what those numbers mean. Typically, when there's a leak on the ground, existing technology will use acoustic method to find those leaks, and their performance is heavily dependent on the environment. And when those technology find leaks, they will tell you a leak within this probably like 100 feet range, about 3 times the size of this room. And with PipeGuard, we can tell you exactly the location of a leak at down to 1 feet accuracy. More than that, current technology, when they find leaks, they usually tell leaks that's already really big. They tell leaks that's losing about 10 gallons of water per minute. And that is twice as fast as you can shower. And that's not great. That's not good at all, right? So with Robot Daisy, we can tell leaks that's only losing at about 1 gallon of water per minute, and it can tell it reliably, independent of environment. So with this technology, we can tell leaks when they are small in their early stage, way long months before they actually grow into a bigger leak that creates infrastructure damage or losing tons of water. So that's the picture. So right now, we already we are still part of MIT right now, and we just registered a company last month, and we already get 3 pilot committed, financially supported pilots in the already. One of them is in Virginia, one in China, and one in Mexico. And through Solve, this is a channel for us to reach more policymakers and water companies to help us scale up our solution, as well as find leaks, save water, and protect infrastructure. Thank you.
So I'm curious about the last point you made. So why isn't the main emphasis or your main effort in really just commercializing this and selling it and getting it, to as many cities as possible?
So there are 2 motivations behind it. The first one is water leak is a common issue. It happens everywhere. In the US, we are already doing pretty well. We are only losing about 22% water leaks. In Boston, it was around 15%. And in some countries, in Mexico, where one of our project sponsors is from, in Mexico City, lose about 50% water. So we really want to have this solution scale up as fast as we can to help cities around the world save water and protect infrastructure, as soon as we can.
Is the sensor binary, so it's pull or no pull,
It's
or
analog.
is there? Oh, so there's a variable, like you could identify the level of a pull.
Exactly.
How many increments? Like
So right now, we actually right now we only tell leak in 5 different levels. That up to very good accuracy. If we want to tell more accurate, we can go up to the accuracy.
And that's really important for prioritizing, because I'm sure you run one of these things through a municipal system, you're going to find 10,000 leaks, and so you'd be able to know the 5s versus the 1s.
Yep, you get the point. When we talk to Boston, they say every year, when we talk to City of Cambridge, where MIT is, they find about 40 leaks a year. And, but they know that although they fix 40 of those leaks, they still have about 15% water losing from somewhere else. And these 40 leaks create about $8 million property damage to them every year that they have to pay for. So one of our main proposals in the US market, at least, is to help water companies find those leaks before they become catastrophic event, so that they can prevent those property damage and save about those much money every year.
One size that can cover different kind of size of pipe.
So the question was if the robot can cover different size pipes. We have one robot for a range of pipes. This one is particular for pipes around 2 inches in diameter, and we have bigger daisies for bigger pipes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So you have like a that kind
The biggest one we have right now is 12 inches. It's for the Mexico project.
Any risk it gets stuck in the pipe and increase more
So
cost?
the question was if the robot will ever get stuck in the pipe. The answer is there is a possibility. That's the reason why we went with a squeezable soft robot. And this robot can adapt to pipes diameter change up to 20%. And I'm really glad to announce that actually last month, we were able to make one robot that can adapt to 50% diameter reductions. So our robot right now is much less likely to get stuck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is Spira.
Yep.
Can we just reset the time? All right. Thank you. Pond scum can save the world. Hi, I'm Elliot, and I'm an algae farmer with Spira. Spira creates algae technology that can solve basic human needs. Algae is everywhere. It gives us the air we breathe, cleans the water we drink, fuels our cars, and even powers the food we eat. Algae is expected to be a $44.7 billion market by 2023. Now, while this may seem new, actually algae has been grown and eaten by people for hundreds and hundreds of years. The Kanembu tribe in and around Lake Chad has been farming and harvesting spirulina in alkali pools. This is one of the only regions in the area that doesn't suffer from micronutritional deficiency because they eat algae. When the UN discovered this in 1974, they declared spirulina as the food for the future, and with good reason. Spirulina is 60% protein by weight. It contains most of the micronutrients you need for your daily diet, and it doubles daily, requiring only air, water, light, and a few simple salts to grow. I think it's magic. Spirulina is able to provide for virtually all of our basic needs. But the algae industry suffers from a number of different problems. This is the way algae is currently grown. In these large-scale outdoor ponds, it can only be grown seasonally and has problems with contamination getting into the waterway. In addition, algae has problems associated with taste. What Spira does is we've created algae technology that solve the problems with growth, harvesting, and taste issues with algae. We do that through a simple, scalable system that takes all sorts of pollutants as inputs and outputs clean air, food, and water virtually anywhere in the world. These decentralized systems are able to be scalable and modular in many different ways. We can produce protein for fractions of a penny per kilogram year-round using these systems. This is how it works. Our device is modular and scalable, kind of working like a vertical farming of algae. We are powered by sunlight, and using that same sunlight, we're able to harvest and filter algae, kind of like a reusable coffee filter, using additional modules. We have partners all over the world, ranging from rural India to Southeast Central LA, that use our devices as a means of providing access to clean water and food. Now, we're looking for strategic partners in order to scale production of our device. And we are currently selling home devices, so you can visit livespira.com to purchase your own today. With your help, we can enable access to nutrition anywhere effortlessly and find all sorts of creative uses for algae. Thank you.
Aren't there other sort of micronutrients in algae, and do you work with that, or is this just like an engineered product just for protein?
Yeah, so our device is able to produce any variety of different kind of algae. It kind of serves as a platform for any potential partner. And then the micronutritional content, in particular of spirulina that we're focused on right now, produces a lot of protein and iron in particular, which is the most prevalent micronutritional deficiency.
Hi. Can you describe more how you do or do not work with the existing algae farms that you showed on the screen? And are there other market segments that you would be looking to work with?
Yeah, so we actually serve as an enabling technology for algae producers and providers. One example is working with an algae company currently to produce protein bars. Another example is to track and use our IoT devices as a means of having these producers understand their production a whole lot more. With our devices, we're able to implement them all over the place, and so it's really catered to whoever our current partner is, and they license the technology from us. So as long as there's a tube as an input and a tube as an output, we're able to attach different modules depending on the need.
So spirulina, so this is biomass produced by cyanobacteria, I gather. So there are products on the market already. So what do you, tell me again what it is that your product is doing differently.
Yeah.
And how will that product be used and scaled up?
So we don't actually produce our own food products or anything like that. We provide the device that serves as the technology to help people produce.
And so is this is about the device. And so this is a product development.
Yes, yeah. So we've already produced the device itself.
How much does the device cost?
So the device is selling right now for $95. Is a kind of like do-it-yourself put-together kit, and you can implement it virtually anywhere.
And it produces the
Yeah,
algae, but then how do you get the powder? How do you then use that?
Yeah. So algae, when consumed fresh, is virtually tasteless. And so you don't need to prepare the powder or anything from this device. We'll attach additional modules depending on partner need later on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next up is Flatbox.
So hi, today I'm going to tell you how we're about to directly impact the lives of 12,000 people in Guatemala through the awesome power of the Internet of Things, and how we plan to scale that impact with the help of the Salt Network. It all started about a year ago when a private utility water company in Guatemala asked us to tackle the challenges of water utilities. So we came up with this IoT self-recharge device, which is open source. And we got actually nominated and prized on innovation in IoT in January. When this information got out, and one partner of ours, who was working with a community in Guatemala that actually takes care of the water utility service, contacted us to work with them, changing our strategy or our focus from maintenance and uptime, which was the key point for the utility company, to transparency and water resource management or conservation efforts. That is important for this community because they generate the revenue to low cost of operation, and the revenue they generate from the water utility services directly reinvested inside the community as public infrastructure, since they are a nonprofit organization. So we changed their tools. We changed our tool that was enterprise and focused it on the community, giving it a tool so that the end user, can now have the information to become part of a larger effort of conservation that is important for maintaining low cost of operations, and of course, to maximize the revenue they can generate to impact inside the community. How we do this right now is that we take real-time data that's incoming through the device. We apply a mathematical model, and we get a footprint for every user. That footprint gets compared on a daily basis, so they get alarms and notifications about water use, water abuse, and water efforts. And what they do is that they provide an incentive for sustained efforts in water conservation, and they provide a reduced cost for the end user. For the water community, they get on the long time data inferred from the water use on every single point, and which reduces their cost of operation by maximizing their water production. What we're looking for solve is, as any smart city project we cannot take this endeavor only by technology suppliers that are us, or the water utility companies, in this case, the community. We require academia that validates our data and optimizes our mathematical models to get better data, and of course, government and funding for evaluating our impact.
Thank you.
Do you have some numbers on the installation cost, the maintenance cost, and how long does the device last?
Yeah, the device lasts about 8 years. Since it generates its own power, it relies on very little maintenance. It's basically designed to stay on the ground and stay there for a very long period of time. And the other is actually the cost is about $100 for right now. Since it's open source, we're not really into making a profit out of the device itself, but we actually charge about 10 to 5 cents for every transaction of information that gets to the user, so that he gets involved and has a tool for sustaining his water conservation effort. And of course, we charge for the information of the system that the utility, in this case, the community, access to our platform, so they can see a map of all of their water use and replay that in real time. So you can see here, this is kind of the map that we give them as a heat map. Anyone else?
What I didn't get is, where do you install it at every user or upstream?
Yeah, we don't install it. The community installs it at every user. In some parts, they don't have on every user. They got a macro, based for like 1 for every 10 users. But since they can know what the users are and we can see the flow in real time, they can pretty much guess who is actually consuming more. They can also enforce policy. So let's say they run out of payments, so they can remotely open and close the bulbs, of course. And that also opens the opportunity for other pricing models, such as volume-based models or prepaid models. But it's not really what we do. Is an information platform. The idea of being open source is actually to structure the data. So it's an open source, it's an open data initiative. So the idea of it is that academia can come and run these stress models on water systems and networks. And that's where we will need those partnerships with academia and, of course, foundations to validate our models and our impact in communities.
So this is kind of a big question, but we have 20 seconds. So, around the world, there are very, very different pricing models. Who pays for water and how, and who owns the water? Do you see this able to be introduced in many different contexts?
Yes, that's what we're happy to be here. We know that this is a global platform, and we know that water, because of our work with water utilities and now communities, we know that they are very, everybody works different, but we know we can integrate all those into a platform.
Thank you. Next up is water spots.
Everyone. I'm Johanna Hoffman. I'm a designer at the Urban Fabric Collaborative Nonprofits, and I'm honored to be here to tell you about water spots, watering holes for the 21st century. As you know, water security is a serious issue. By 2025, it's estimated that 2.8 billion people will be in water stress with limited access to safe, fresh water. At the same time, some of the most underutilized water resources are fog, dew, and rainwater. Better harnessing these resources is an overlooked opportunity to diversify and strengthen our water system. So the question becomes, how do we harness these resources? Our answer is water spots. These are watering holes for the 21st century, a scalable tool for on-site water collection and public engagement in water security issues. Using tested technologies, fog and rainwater are collected passively, while dew collection uses more active technologies. Combined in water spots, these systems can harvest over 100 liters of water per water spot per day. But what really distinguishes them from other systems out there are the ways that they incorporate public gathering and education space. Shade, places to sit, and digital learning tools are embedded in each water spot, inviting visitors to learn about water security issues and resilience planning options while they gather water and connect with their fellow citizens. Studies show that this emphasis on public learning and engagement is critical to enhancing our resilience as climate shift. So we're confident that this approach to decentralized, diversified water systems can have profound impacts on water security across scales. At the neighborhood level, water spots can harvest over 500 liters of water per day. This isn't enough to satisfy all water needs, but it can serve to begin diversifying water sources on site and enhance community engagement in these issues. At the city level, water spots can harvest over 60,000 liters of water per day. As efficiency improves, they can be linked to municipal systems, and in areas with less developed infrastructure, capacity can be enhanced with seating that couples as extra storage. So in this way, water spots also serve as critical disaster planning tools, providing water on site during natural hazards and emergencies. So by installing more water spots over greater areas, we get diversified, stronger water systems, and more informed, active, and empowered resilient communities, cities, and regions. So we've tested water spot technologies in the lab and outside, and we're about to install our first prototype this month to assess their performance within water spot models. And we're moving forward with collecting funds and working with our community partners to further refine water spot designs for additional pilot testing and market launch over the next 2 years. We're looking to solve for connection with community partners, funders, and additional water filtration partners, which has been great to be here for that. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to answering questions about water spots, watering holes for the 21st century.
Once the water is harvested, how is it distributed?
So water spot models are all installed in one site. The idea is for them to be public, and water filtration technologies are embedded lower down in the water spot itself. So it's about creating a space for people to come to that water spot itself.
So once it's there?
Right, so it's potable and filtered on site, so it's potable water. You gather it and you kind of go back to your house. It's really based off of that kind of historical idea of the watering hole in cities. You come, you gather at the watering hole, gather water, connect with people, go about your day.
And can you talk about the location of the water spots? Do you imagine this being on private property, public property? Do your partners identify this for you?
Yeah, sure. So we're hoping to make this entirely public. Water is a resource that we all need. And so ideally, we're going to be working with municipalities. Right now, we're working with the San Francisco United School District to explore deployment in elementary schools. And the idea is to move on from there. But the reality is that in some areas, water access is privatized. So in some areas, more public-private partnerships could be more desirable. So it really depends on our community partners and who we end up working with moving forward.
So is it passive system, or is there power demand required, and does that vary by humidity? Like, I wonder, I think usually these only work in humid environments, I'm assuming.
So great question. It's both passive and active technologies. Fog is collected with a filtration mesh, and so fog passes through that mesh at a perpendicular angle. That mesh we're using right now is made of plastic filament produced at low cost in Chile. Rainwater is collected in a cistern, again passive, whereas dew collection uses active technologies. Solar panels cool metal surfaces on the water spot. Those metal surfaces serve as condensation surfaces, and again, all that water, once collected, moves down via gravity into storage and filtration tanks. So Really, it depends also on meteorological conditions of deployment sites, and that's one of 3 critical aspects that we need for our deployment sites. But these are not applicable only to more humid areas. Fog and dew collect in very arid places. So we're really targeting mostly arid and semi-arid locations, which comprise over 40% of Earth's land surface, have billions of people living within them. So this can really be applicable and important for a large proportion of the global population.
After you factor in the capital costs of a water spot, how does the per liter or the unit price compare to other water sources?
That's a great question, and we haven't yet calculated that. Right now, water spots are priced between $7,000 and $9,000 each. And yeah, we need to do more testing, more pilot testing. We just started water spots in April, and so we've been working with partners who have been testing these technologies for over 7 years. But in terms of the viability of water spots itself, to compete price-wise, we have to do more testing and develop more tested technologies within the water spot itself to really make sure about that moving forward, which is why, looking for funding from Solve. Thanks.
So much. Our next pitch is our second video pitch of the day, our final video pitch of the day. So I'll ask that we will jump forward, and hopefully this video will just play. So we may need to come back and get the audio hooked up. Yep. Yes, we have also asked that the heat be turned up by a few degrees, because we know that everybody's freezing. And do we have Still Fresh on the line? Chris, are you there?
How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for being with us. So Chris is calling in from the Philippines. Chris, I'm here with 7 excellent judges who have some questions for you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Loud and clear.
Okay, very good. So my question is, it seems to me that there are enormous food companies that would be interested in your product. Why don't you just go ahead and commercialize it? Why do you need Solve?
Our goal is really to maximize. Thank you for the question. Our goal is really to maximize the social impact, and we really want to be connected with like-minded people as well. We also find it useful to really have good partnerships and connections with really good teams and people who can really drive us forward to the international stage. So through we may be able to do this thing, but we know that one person or one team is not big enough to make a difference. That's why we're always looking for partnerships and really knowledge partners to really move us forward in making this vision happen.
We have another question coming here.
Yes. When you monitor something, there is always the risk to alert too early or too late. How would you range your product on the spectrum? It's going to show red before it's actually spoiled, or quite the reverse, there is a risk that someone trusts the product when in fact it's already spoiled?
Our product is a strip. It's meant to be applied over time for the food business. So its ideal application is for it to be applied throughout the day so that whenever they have a doubt on their food, they can easily monitor at the time if it's spoiled or not. So it changes color once the food is spoiled because of the emission of certain gases from bacteria. And this is what we measure through our product.
The strip itself, could you tell me about the cost of the strip? And if you could also say something about once a strip is used, is it just simply thrown away? What happens to it?
Okay. The strip is re-engineered here in the Philippines. That's why its cost is very low. It's $0.10 to produce. It's very affordable, especially for third world countries. It's very adaptable. You can apply it to any type of food container so that any type of food business can use it. And it's also disposable. So we don't want to risk reusing the same type of strip always so that the spoilage will be passed on. But we want to monitor it using an easy to use, affordable, and accessible strip. So it's not a device. You don't need an instruction booklet or anything. You just stick it in the container. It changes color from purple to yellow. So anyone in the third world country, much more from other industrialized countries, they will know how to easily use it. Just stick it in, it will change color.
Great.
It will determine and monitor.
That's unfortunately all the time we have for questions. Thank you so much for calling in, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for joining. Have a good day.
Great. Our final finalist for the day in Sustainable Urban Communities is Jim Chu with Untapped.
So I'll try to keep everybody awake for the next 6 minutes. I know I'm the last speaker here. So my name is Jim, and I'm from Untapped. I'm the CEO and co-founder. And at Untapped, we focus a little bit more on some of the forgotten areas, not just about technology, but about the logistics of how to get that technology to the ones most in need, about how to maintain financial sustainability, about how to scale across borders and to reach the millions. So what do we do exactly? Oh, there it goes. So our focus is on deploying and managing decentralized water treatment infrastructure. Water facilities like this. Oops, sorry. Water facilities like this. This is a solar-powered water treatment facility. It produces 20 to 30,000 liters a day to the surrounding community. But it's not just a water treatment facility. It's also a logistics hub. So the point is to get to as many people as possible through this decentralized infrastructure. And what we do is we utilize last mile transport such as this, but also go through It's moving on its own, so I'll try to move it back. There he goes. Last mile infrastructure such as the last mile transport, but also small retailers such as her. She is the lifeblood of these communities. Most of the commerce in these communities goes through folks such as her. And so what we try to do is to make the supply chain serving her work better. We do that by making the supply chain more efficient through data and IT, but also by delivering things just in time so she's spending less cash on making her business work. So we focus on clean, reliable water, and she focuses on reaching everybody she needs to. But once we create this network, we're able to do all sorts of things. We can distribute powdered milk. We can distribute toilet paper. We distribute soap. So we create a viable distribution network through the informal market. It's not a concept. We have scaled to reach communities over 300,000 in Haiti through 8 sites and over 500 sales points. And all our sites are EBITDA positive or cash flow positive. And we will reach break even at the venture level by June 2018. So we're also moving on to create community spaces by providing energy and water to other businesses and creating economic opportunity around that, and using the trust and the local presence we have to build awareness of clean water, but also about healthy nutrition. But the big question, I hope I have in the next 20 minutes, is how do we actually scale beyond what we have in Haiti and go across borders to the next billion consumers? So we're building a platform as a service to provide all the tools and best practices that we created to help operators and empower them to function more efficiently and scale up. Thank you very much. Sorry for the logistics.
So could you describe a little bit more about the platform? What constitutes the platform?
I hope somebody would ask that so I can talk more about it. So the platform is really focused around, on one hand, the IT platform that we've created for logistics as well as managing the sites, as well as the operational practices. As many probably know, IT is process. Business process is IT. So we try to put that together as what I would call software for how to do this, but also some of the capital lease financing so that we can also provide the hardware around it. This industry is an emerging one. There's water enterprises like this popping up everywhere, but the biggest obstacle for most is sustainability and scalability. And so by trying to provide this and all the things that people are reinventing up front, we can try to scale up faster.
Are you able to keep the price of water competitive even with these additional costs that a typical water vendor may not have?
So it's actually the other services is what helps subsidize and improve the gross margins of our water business. So what we actually try to do is maintain the lowest price of the water. So our water is about 1/3 of the price of the lowest comparable product. And we try to use the water not as the primary source of gross margin, but rather as the entry point to establish the commercial relationships with the retailers and establish the brand and trust in the community. And we make the money off of the secondary products such as powdered milk and soap and everything else.
Hi, Jim. So you've talked about a water treatment facility, a logistics hub, last mile transport, supply chain efficiency. I'm not clear why you're an arts and culture finalist, and that may not be your fault. You may have been stuck in that category, but if you could speak to that, it would be helpful.
To be very honest, I don't know 100% either. I think,
okay. I think that's the answer we needed to hear.
Okay, so I think we are present in the community, which is already an incredible step for most organizations. I think reaching some of these communities and being trusted by the communities is already a big step. So we're there. We provide infrastructure for being there, and the costs are covered for being there. So that's the first step, if you will.
Thank you.
Other questions from the side of the judging panel?
So I think it's a hard question to answer, but what does your service cost? What do you charge?
So the price of the service is included in the product. So we essentially, so for example, the woman back here, we charge her 20 Haitian goud, and she resells her product for 25. And so she's making 20% margin, but everything that we provide in terms of the service is included in the cost to her. Thank you very much.
Okay, with that, I would like to invite all of the finalists up here, and you can do some jumping jacks along the way if you want, for our audience Q&A. And I think we have a mic in the back that we can run around if you raise your hands. As we're getting up here and as you're maybe taking notes, if you pull out your smartphones and you go to slido.com or sli.do, if you want to stand away from the address there, and you'll ask for an event code. It's solvefinals, our standard hashtag. You will have a question that will be up momentarily for your which solution you are most inspired by. We would love your vote, and we will communicate that to the judges during deliberation. So while we're also doing that, if folks have questions, please put up your hands, and our mic runner will come find you. Oh, sorry. I'm standing in the way of things. Yep. 1, 2.
I had a question about mealworms. The protein, can you tell us a little bit about the balance of the amino acids as compared to like whey protein, I mean?
For pregnant women.
Over on the far side.
I had a question for City Taps. So you discussed in your pitch that there are 2 major challenges that face utilities, loss of water and delays in payment. Could you discuss how your product addresses those issues?
Thank you. That's a great question. So the delays in payments, obviously, if you move to prepayment, those go away. You go from having a positive age of debt to having a negative age of debt. It sounds a bit crass, perhaps, but you basically transform your water utility into a supermarket, where they get the cash up front and then pay their suppliers later. And the hope, of course, beyond that is that you can use that financial wherewithal to make the investment, to become an attractive investment target for foundations wanting to do MRI and impact investors wanting to invest in low risk, high cash return investments in networks. That's the first part. And then the huge water losses, which run 30 to 70% of produced water, which is insane. It's basically letting water run down the drain and money run down the drain. It's through the smart part of the meter. So the meter is intelligent. It knows how much water is going through it. And so you can do a simple balance between in and out and detect where your leaks are happening. And you can be a lot smarter about where you are going to make your effort to get the leaks fixed. That's the 2 things. And then I wanted to answer your question about cost, if you don't mind. The answer to your question is it costs 0. That's the whole point of the meter as a service. There's no upfront cost to the utility. They pay a monthly fee every month that depends on how much money they're generating from their customers. Obviously, we're going to have to be smart about exactly how we set that fee, but that's the basic answer to your question. So thank you.
While we're running the mic over to here, can we hook the WebEx back in case Angel and Chris get questions?
My question's for Copia. I'm not sure where is she?
Komal has vanished.
Okay.
If she comes back, we'll come back. Pass the mic over a few people here, just to your left.
My question's for Gravity Water. What's the average cost of this system, and is it intended for residential or business use?
Great question. So the cost varies based on how much storage we have. The largest costs that we have in the system are the storage tanks. So depending on how many people we serve, that cost changes, and it decreases based on the size. The smaller the scale of the system, the more it will cost per person. The systems that you saw, most of them cost around $2,000, which average to about $10 per person per year. This drops down to about 10 cents per person per year after the following year, because the only replacements are about $50 or so for filter replacement. So it's actually has a lifespan of multiple decades, since there's nothing that can really break in the system. such as pumps. So the cost per person diminishes over time. The cost per system diminishes based on how high we scale it.
One, and if there's a bunch of people, I can set up a whole bunch of numbering here. Keep the mic moving.
Hey, I also had a question about mealworms. So in places like Guatemala, I know there's a really robust agriculture degree programs in universities and stuff. And I didn't hear in the presentation anything about your relationship with, local capacity when it comes to agriculture and agronomy programs in universities, because you said that the knowledge isn't there in communities. So what are you doing to make it be there, to help it be there?
So we're starting to collaborate with the Ministry of Agriculture, and we're going to get master's students to do internships with us. So they have a practicum component that lasts 6 months. So they would be coming and helping us. And then that other commercial mealworm farmer who I mentioned is doing his own studies to figure out how to optimize the output of mealworm farms by using different feeds. And he's looking into possibly using the waste products from corn production to feed mealworms to see if the protein content stays the same. So we have several different collaborators in Guatemala right now.
Other questions? I see some more folks have jumped into the room. Yep. One back over on the wall. Along the wall.
Another question for City Taps. So is there a way that you can provide subsidies directly to users using their mobile phone link that you discussed for prepayment?
Right, so thank you. That's a great question. So one of the really super cool things that I didn't get a chance to talk about during the presentation is that we can do individualized subsidies. We can subsidize each and every individual water utility subscriber according to their need, according to the size of their family, according to their financial status, directly to, not to their mobile phone, which would actually be basically subsidizing the mobile network operator, but directly to their city meter, directly to their city suite. So let's say that you've got $1,000 that you want to give, and you want to give it to the 1,000 poorest families in Niger, in Niamey. You can give them each $1 on their neck for them to have water directly to their city meter. And because we keep track of who our beneficiaries are, we know who the 1,000 poorest families are. And in fact, some people have already started doing this. During Ramadan, we received very generous donations from the members of, friends of City Taps, if you will, who wanted to give water to our beneficiaries. And some of the people now have free water for a year because it turned out we only have so many people installed and we received quite a bit of money. So yes, we can do that. And for things like, instead of passing out vouchers and passing out money, it's a lot cleaner. It also means the diaspora can commit water directly to people's accounts. I mean, it opens a whole level of possibilities for philanthropy.
Great. I know that Kamal has rejoined the room. So if we want to get the microphone back here, have a microphone.
Hello. I was wondering if you had, over here, sorry.
Got it.
I was wondering if you had any issues with foodborne illness or allergies, and if so, how you handled that.
No.
That's gross.
Other questions? Yep, right in the back.
And to add to that, that was such a simple answer. All of our drivers are SurfSafe certified, so they have the professional food handler training necessary to be able to move this food very quickly and in a way that is safe. And then all of this food is, because we're point-to-point distribution, we don't have a hub. All of this food moves within 30 minutes, max an hour, in insulated bags or refrigerated trucks. You don't. I mean, you're also basing this on the fact that the donor is providing, food safety is inherent to all of the businesses, right? Like, that is their life. They're providing food on a daily basis to other people. And so this is just one more step that you're doing. And they also abide by food safety standards, which are uniform across the board. And I'm sure that was something else I was going to say, but I'll come think about it and let you know.
Yep.
Next.
Thank you. How can you say to Flatbox? How can you save costs to urban communities by using water bucks?
Yeah, well, you can actually, from the data that we infer, we reduce the cost of water waste. So they rely a lot on water production and keeping that production very efficiently reaching out to their customers. One of the things we do is that we can, since we're monitoring every endpoint on a real-time basis, we can actually shut down all of the endpoints if there is a problem in the system, and we can determine if there's a problem in the system from the sensors installed within that also monitor water pressure. So if we see a down of water pressure, we can know that there's a leakage in that area and shut down every single one of those water meters and then deploy someone immediately to address that challenge so that reduces cost of troubleshooting.
Great.
I remember the last part I was going to say. All of the nonprofits that we work with sign a hold harmless indemnity agreement, which directly indemnifies us as well as any of our food providers from any liability. It also puts the onus of accepting, rejecting, distributing food onto them. So if they bring like a box of corn and it smells funky, they could be like, nah, brah, we're not about this. Like, and you could reject that food. It hasn't happened, but it could.
I have one big question for anyone who wants to take this in the group, which is we live in a very fast-changing world, and I know that many of us you're all working in very different contexts, some developing, some developed, but there are a lot of technologies, and we've heard them mentioned, things like blockchains and AIs and machine learning. I was wondering what technologies you are following that you're really excited about and see potential interactions with for your solution that maybe you didn't talk about within your pitches.
Drone technology, can you imagine that? Like you surpass all of this, autonomous vehicles, so you don't even have to rely on drivers, so taking food from point A to point B and enabling it to happen even faster, and then deploying food in other regions that are aside from just the wealthiest country in the world.
Yep. I think over to here and then to Elliot.
So for us, a key enabler to our solution is the IoT soon-to-be standard LoRa, which is a long-range wide area network. And that enables us to connect our smart water meter with the Internet of Things in a very energy efficient and low marginal cost basis. It also means because we're not a telecom operator, we can deploy our own LoRa network with little, they're tiny little antennas. And we're basically free to then have other sensors piggyback onto our network and create additional value for the water utility. So LoRaWAN is definitely key. And then mobile money, of course. We make it possible through mobile money. So.
Cool.
So I got one over here. So I completely geek out about new technology. So I mean, our systems use IoT devices as a means of tracking all this stuff, and then machine learning algorithms as a means of growing algae in better kind of ways. So we have these decentralized distributed networks that we then, I mean, I guess some people have mentioned the use of blockchain in kind of this capacity, but we can track and learn and get better at growing algae anywhere in the world. So that's one piece of it. The other piece that I really enjoy as an emerging technology, so this is my background in synthetic biology. I love tinkering and working with organisms. And so you can engineer organisms to do all sorts of crazy newfangled things using evolving technology like CRISPR or other such avenues of working with organisms. And we're starting to do that in the lab, which is really fun.
All right, I got one cool technology that a lot of municipalities are looking at right now, and that's inline turbines into pipe systems. This pretty much utilizes the flow of water to turn a turbine and generate electricity that would save on some of the cost and production of generating that water and moving it. However, for gravity water systems, if we could find a way to integrate an affordable turbine technology, it would be 100% beneficial and new energy supply, not replacing energy that was used. Since most of these systems are used in areas like Nepal that have Indian monsoons, they have 5 months of solid rain, and that water is just going down. So there's a high potential for integrating inline turbines to generate power at gravity water systems as well.
Great.
Yeah, I
Edwin,
think
Johanna, and then Anil. This is good. I like having all these different responses.
I think one that's key central to our technology is artificial intelligence. The amount of data that we produce from our sensors is so huge, it's so big that no single human being could actually go through a year of the whole 1,000 sensors generating this. But the leads that artificial intelligence can see that underlying, the obvious. For example, it can map out, like when somebody said, the economical status of from water consumption. It also can map out different factors. And I think this is only possible with AI. There's no other way to do it, and I think that's a very key part of it.
Johanna next.
Hi, sorry. Apart from the technology we have already presented here, we have one more technology where we increase the lifespan of the food so it doesn't get wasted for another 3-4 weeks, which is supposed to get wasted in one week. And we have a patent for this as well, and we are looking forward to take that forward.
Great.
We're excited about two particular technologies. One of them are more effective and efficient fog catchment mesh made out of particular kinds of metal. MIT in particular is one institution that's developing those, and so we would love to explore that further for implementation. The other technology are different kinds of dew catchment systems based on the Namibian desert beetle, which are textured surfaces that maximize water catchment on site in very low energy cost ways. So we're excited to explore those.
I think as well too, wasn't mentioned virtual reality, because we're talking about problematics in the world, right? And in the end, decisions get taken by emotional connection as well. And we've done our first virtual reality following one of the fruits that then gets to refectorio and gets transformed into a meal for people in need. And so people really connect. And I think any of us can use that as well in their space of work, because showing what actually happens in Africa with water, or what happens in Guatemala with malnutrition of children. So I think that has huge potential for all of us.
Okay. One more piece here, because I have a note. Can we open up WebEx? Because I think that Angel has an answer for this as well. And then we'll have one more audience question, and then we're going to have to call it.
I can answer that same question really quickly if you don't.
Sure. Well, we're figuring this out.
I'm just going to answer it in a slightly different way, because I think it's easy to geek out on technology. So that's cool, that's cool, that's cool. But I think what we found is that really understanding the use cases in the markets that we work in, developing markets in particular. So you could take stuff that's already out there, whether it's mobile IT or IoT or anything else, and really actually adapt it to the use case of that market. That's really important.
Yep.
And so there's a lot more that can be done with leveraging existing technologies in a way that's better suited for those markets.
Can I just add something to that? So I didn't really talk about our training model with Meal Flour, but we do discussion-based classes and then monthly focus groups. So we're really focused on human-centered design and incorporating the feedback of our participants as to what they find is working. And that kind of methodology and approach and doing what they find is working in their particular setting has been really exciting, because we learn a lot from them, even though this is the first time that they're raising mealworms, and that's information and knowledge that we can spread with other participants in the future. So that's been really cool and exciting to be a part of.
Last piece on this question, Angel? I think she's a little bit delayed given where we are in time. But Angel, if you can speak up, we'd love to have your answer to this. While we're waiting, is there another question? Yeah.
Hi, I have a question for Gastromotiva. I thought it was a really impressive concept, and you've obviously attracted a fair amount of star power in terms of funding. I think you mentioned IDB and Cargill, and from a...
And pause on that for...
Yep, no worries.
Yep, go.
Hello?
This is
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, we can. Hello?
Yes, we can.
Hello? Angel, you're all set. Okay.
Frankly, it's amazing that we can connect anywhere in this sort of space.
Angel, if you'd like to answer the question about what technology you're most excited about, go ahead.
Yes, for us, we have a bit of a different context because we are starting to get introduced to technologies that are already existing in other environments and climes. So things that we're interested in are how to take maybe minimum viable products that have been developed in other countries that can fit for Nigeria's context. So we're looking a lot at how water generation technologies can be used, especially in agriculture. We're also looking at how blockchain can help us to be able to track and do surveillance, because we don't really have as good systems for surveilling food and knowing where it came from, so at least make sure that they're getting the best quality food. And then we're also interested, of course, in automation technology to help to reduce the human error, so that all of the urban farmers that are on our platform can have more hand-holding through the process, so that they don't make any mistakes that could be prevented. So those are things that we're really looking at. Of course, LED technology and off-grid solutions for pumps, for lighting as well.
Great, thank you. And so if we can finish this question, then we'll maybe have one more, and then we'll be done.
So back to Gastromotiva, I was just curious about the partnerships that you've been able to leverage so far in terms of, so funding, you said Cargill and IDB, and on this kind of gastronomical culinary side, the chef Massimo Bottura. I was wondering if you're looking to kind of leverage those relationships as you build out your product lines. I think you were mentioning moving into different business lines like frozen foods and things like that. So are you going to be doing co-branding with some of those funders or like Massimo? Or are you going to be able to leverage those partnerships to?
We have a client already.
To grow.
Yeah, I think because we didn't go into detail, but our food product lines will be basic, so give access to communities as well to healthy food, unlike what's happened now with a New York Times article where Nestle distributes and creates littering. But on the other hand, we're going to have upscale products as well. So where Massimo co-produces a recipe and then we sell the product at a much higher margin to get more revenue in. So yes, that we're leveraging. And then on the experience side and educational events, we as well closed a partnership with FAO, so to train the trainers. We've already gone to the Dominican Republic last month, now going to Colombia, training people to work with this issue on site as well with the experience that we have. So that's a consultancy, so it's a revenue stream for us, and it's part of our mission of creating multipliers as well. So yes, so these are the base for partnerships.
Thank you so much. That's all the time we have for questions. 2 minutes of housekeeping here. Lunch is going to be outside momentarily, so you can go out and grab that. Please don't waylay the finalists. We need to move them to the other room, make sure they know where they're seating for the afternoon plenary first. Then you can grab them over lunch. Please join us for that plenary. It will be around inclusion as a fuel for innovation with Ursula Burns. We will also be announcing the selected solvers. Judges, we will head off into our deliberation room, and we will be back with you in an hour. Thank you all so much again for coming. I hope you really were impressed by this huge swath of different ideas. And thanks. Look forward to the rest of the day. If you want to, you don't need to. We have all the data.